Anti-abortion activists and legislators have found a new way to punish women for using their constitutional rights of reproductive freedom, and they're called fetal burial bills. These fetal burial bills demand that women, after having an abortion, must inform the clinic if they want the aborted remains to be cremated or buried. The abortion clinic is financially responsible for completing the task, which in practice means that the woman having the abortion is financially responsible for completing the task. Now, I have never paid for a cremation or a burial, but I have heard stories that they are incredibly expensive, rising into the thousands and thousands of dollars. And so they keep saying they don't want to punish these women for having abortions, and yet you are seeing these bills pop up in more and more states. Idaho, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, they all have bills in their current session right now with language pulled directly from the Americans United for Life's model legislation, which is evocatively titled the Unborn Infants Dignity Act. And so women in all of those states right now, if these bills go through, might end up having to spend thousands more dollars to have the abortions that supposedly they're constitutionally able to have.
So they're doing this for two different reasons. The first reason is to further this notion that a fetus is a person that has constitutional rights, right? So there are fetal personhood bills that have been proposed in various red states, and they've been deemed unconstitutional because a fetus does not have the same constitutional rights as a human being. The second reason why they're doing this is because they want it to lead to an undue burden for any woman seeking to get an abortion, which is also something that the Supreme Court decided back in 1973 is against the Constitution, right? They said that abortion should not be something that's tied to any undue burden. And making them pay for a cremation or a burial for a zygote or for a fetus is an undue burden, especially financially, right?
Yeah.
So, look, they can go ahead and try to pass these laws, but what's likely to happen is state resources in the form of taxpayer money is going to be used to defend this type of law, right? So I don't know if it's going to get all the way to the Supreme Court, but again, it's going to be costly, and they're wasting government resources, taxpayer money on nonsense like this.
Yeah, and in a very irresponsible, lazy way too. So the AUL, they create this model legislation, and then legislators from all these states, they just take it and copy and paste it. They don't even do the research. They don't care enough to actually come up with this on their own. They literally take the sentences from the AUL and then they just try to pass it all over the country.
Can I add one more thing to this? There's a reason why you see this assault on reproductive rights during every election, right? Whether it's a midterm election or a general election. They specifically do this not because they believe that it's life at the moment of conception. They specifically do this because they know it will resonate with their right-wing voters and it'll win some brownie points for them, right? Do they genuinely care about this issue? No, because if you genuinely cared about this issue as a politician, you'd be a warrior for this issue from the very beginning and you wouldn't stop. But they always propose this legislation in the year leading up to the election. It's kind of incredible.
Look, I honestly think that on the other side, they should look. Democrats typically, historically, have been very hesitant to use abortion in their ads because they know that people aren't necessarily sure exactly what should be done in every case. And there are certainly there are regulations on abortion that you can come up with that are shockingly popular across the country. Here's one that won't be. If you put an ad saying Republicans think that women should be forced to pay thousands of dollars to have burials for fetuses that were 2 months old at the time that they were aborted, nobody thinks that women should be forced to do that. That is obviously a punishment. And we saw how people responded to the Donald Trump thing. When he talked about having a small fine on a woman. This is a fine of literally thousands of dollars at the very least. But it actually goes beyond that. It's not the only way that they want to punish the women. The AUL's bill is meant to be applied to every instance of fetal death, irrespective of the duration of pregnancy. In some cases, this would mean a woman who took an abortion pill a couple months into a pregnancy would be asked if she wanted a quarter-sized blood clot to be formally buried. She would then get a death certificate. Wow. So it's not a baby, man. I understand that it's awkward. I understand it's uncomfortable. But we're talking about almost nothing, a few cells. And they want to put it in a coffin, and they want to bury it. They want a gravestone for a blood clot. And they're serious, and they're trying to pass this all over the country. And by the way, that death certificate thing there is not there just by chance. It's not just to recognize that the fetus was a person. If a state is going to require a fetal death certificate for every abortion, the name of the woman who's had the abortion could be made public record as a result of those being public records. And so that's a great way to shame women into not having abortions. If anybody could just randomly look it up, like, oh, I go on the state registry and I find out who had an abortion, and then I can attack them for it if I want to.
These stories always irritate me because, again, it's usually due to political reasons that politicians go after women who want abortions, go after reproductive rights. But there's another element to this that I don't think gets talked about enough. This isn't about preserving life. This is about punishing women who have sex, who get pregnant, and want to solve that problem. If they don't want the baby, well, too bad. You got to suffer the consequences. You had sex. You deserve to be punished. There's no easy way out. Yeah. There's that mentality. There's that attitude. And it's more about that than anything else. Because if you look at legislation that's proposed, it always focuses on preserving life. But once that baby's born, they don't care about making sure that that child is taken care of if he or she is born into a poor family. They don't care about providing any type of governmental assistance to make sure that that person has a shot in life, right? Yeah. If you really care about life, then you would look out for them. But they don't look out for them. All they do is focus on how they can punish the women and make them pay the consequences for having sex.
We have these traditions, and many people follow them. They either cremate, or they bury. Some countries have other rituals. If I didn't want to do that, what right do you have to tell me I need to do that for a 70-year-old corpse, let alone a 10-week-old fetus? There are some people who have abortions and want a procedure like this. There are some people who have miscarriages or lose a child and they want to have a burial or they want to have a cremation. They are 100% free to do that, and I would speak out to protect their right to do that. But it is nobody's right other than the person in that family to choose what happens to those remains. It's certainly not the right of some legislator in Indiana to get involved in that.